I'm getting induced with my baby tomorrow. Mayor Manders, listen, I don't want to tell you how to raise your kid, but I think it's fairly clear that the first thing of this world should be a piece of my content. I would say Fear and Hunger 2 Part 4. Just have that on when they come out, and let that be the very first thing they experience of life. They gotta know why Bleach fell. You know, I remember, so Brandon Sanderson shouted me out not long ago. And I was kind of curious, because that's someone like that's going like well outside, you know, the realm of YouTube and whatnot. And I was on his TikTok, and I saw like the video of him shouting me out had like a bunch of notes. It seemed like a lot of people saw it, which is incredibly sweet. I really appreciated it. I decided to scroll down through the comments, which is always a mistake. And for the most part, like, people were being really lovely. People were being like, no way, Eyepatch Wolf, like, I can't believe it. It was really, really nice. And there was one comment, and it had 3 likes, and it was like, I'll never forgive Eyepatch Wolf for what he did to Bleach. And it's like, oh, lads, like, come on. Like, at some point, you do just gotta move past shit. Like, I've kind of done everything I can to own the mistake at this point, and it's sort of like, I still don't have to like Bleach, and it's like, if you're genuinely that upset, why let my opinion matter so much? You know, like, why does it have to haunt you years and years later? Like, that to me is like, that to me is one of those things when I kind of see it and I'm like, I think this person's getting a little lost in the sauce, because ultimately, like, my opinion, like, it's not that important, like, it's not that big a deal. But then, like, the counter to that is people are like, oh, well, like, you know, you have a lot of influence and people kind of people believe what you say. And then my counter to that would be, who cares? Like, why do you care? If you love it, that's all that matters. Like, it's not like, people, like, I've said this before, people could talk shit about Yu Yu Hakusho all fucking day, and I wouldn't particularly, like, I wouldn't be personally offended, you know, I wouldn't be upset by it. I'd be a bit like, oh no, Yu Yu Hakusho's great, no, you should check it out, it's really good, here's why I think it's good, you know. But I wouldn't be like seething in a Brandon Sanderson comment section like 9 years later, you know. Bleach is good again, 2025. No, if I was to do another Bleach video, it would be Bleach, fuck you, I was right. I'm not going to, because I don't want to. I'll probably rewatch, like, I'll definitely go back to the Soul Society and watch that on my own time, because I just think that's a genuinely incredible piece of shonen storytelling. But, like, I'm good. I don't need to do no more Bleach content. In hindsight, it's kind of impressive to be an anime-themed lenient channel with one controversial opinion video. Oh, I think I have a couple of controversial opinions, but I think so. Bleach isn't the most popular, like, property in the world right now, but the people who love Bleach fucking love Bleach, and like, I think that's cool. Like, I watched the first half of the 1,000-Year Blood War. I watched the second half at some point, and yeah, that is actually a pretty well put together anime. It looks really nice. The pacing's good. It's like there's a bunch of cool shit about it, you know. And so, like, it's cool that those people got that. I think at just some point, like, I'm just not that important in Bleach's grand narrative, but whatever. It's generally like that with huge childhood media. Yeah. And you know what? I do actually get it, because I think with a lot of anime, right, what happens is, now, it's a little less so now, but it's still largely this way. A lot of animation is like childhood. It's like, you know, it's aimed at like children, especially like in the West. Most animation that happens is aimed at, like, you know, people age like 3 to, I'd say, like 11, right? Anime doesn't work like that. A lot of anime, especially shonen anime, is aimed from like late childhood to, I'd say, predominantly around like 17 or 18. And obviously you can watch it like well past that, but I think that's the target audience. Like, when you're talking about the people who are buying Shonen Jump, it's people who are that age, right? And I think what happens is that a lot of anime you know, really focuses on teenage protagonists. It really talks about all these things that are relevant to growing up. Like say even being a Super Saiyan. You know, this idea of growing into this superior version of yourself. You can find that like in a lot of shonen stuff, right? You can find that in a huge amount of pretty much everything. And then, like, you know, anime is violent, anime is sexual, anime is, you know, will touch on death and stuff like that. Anime is like a piece of animation that a lot of time is tackling themes that are traditionally more adult than what was handled in like Western animation. And that's changing now. Like that it is changing now for sure. But typically that's kind of like the dividing line. And I think what happens to a lot of big hardcore anime fans is they're like 15, 16 and they're watching anime, and it's media that it really feels like it speaks to them for the first time. And like there's a lot of angst in anime, there's a lot of conflict, there's a lot of violence, there's a lot of, like, you know, characters who are just kind of trying so hard but life is difficult. And I think that really resonates with teenagers a lot. Like a lot. And so you end up feeling like seen by this anime, whether it's Naruto, whether it's Demon Slayer, whether it's Hero Academia, whether it's Dragon Ball Z, whatever it is, you feel seen. And that's like a powerful thing for people. I think the first time you really feel like that, it is all encompassing and game changing. Like for me, the first anime that ever did that was Dragon Ball Z and Yu Yu Hakusho. I felt like someone was staring into my fucking soul with those two, you know? But what that isn't is like, what that isn't is like this, it's not necessarily an objective feeling, because what it has to be is it has to be like the first time a piece of media hits you like that. So when I see kids now and I see them getting like Demon Slayer tattoos and stuff like that, I get where it's coming from. Now, personally, I think Demon Slayer's fine. I think it's cool. I enjoy watching it. Like it's a fine show. It's pretty decent, but I don't feel anywhere near that strongly about it. But that's fine because it's not for me. You know, it's not for me in that way. It's for the generation below me. Now that's not saying like if you are my age that like you're like that the show can't resonate with you. I do have friends who are my age who really love Demon Slayer, but I think the generation below us, that's the generation who is just blown the fuck away by Demon Slayer, who are just really like, oh my god, what is this fucking amazing thing? And I'd say the generation before that, it was Hero Academia. You guys know my opinion on Hero Academia. I think that is a pretty gosh darn mid shonen. But I get that it means a lot to people because there's a lot of people who discovered it at that age of like, you know, 16, 17, 15, like kind of that age range. And it really spoke to them in a similar way that Neon Genesis Evangelion spoke to me. I stumbled across Eva when I was the age of those people. You know what I mean? Like, I get it. Like, I understand what that feels like and what a fucking big deal it is. Because like seeing Ava at that age for me genuinely changed the course of my life, right? I'd say you could boil down, there's 3 animes that like changed my life. And I don't mean that in a like, oh, it changed my outlook on the world and it gave me a new perspective. No, I mean me doing this fucking stream right here, this was changed by anime. Like this happened because I started watching anime. I'm a warning, run! You know, that's kind of what this was. And I'd say first one was Dragon Ball Z. I got into martial arts because of Dragon Ball Z. I really started thinking about characters, story because of Dragon Ball Z, because I love Vegeta so fucking much. Second was Ava, and third was Spirited Away. I've told this story before, but I got stoned and went to see The Matrix Reloaded with a friend when I was like, I don't know, 14 or something like that. And during The Matrix Reloaded, they played a trailer for Spirited Away. We came out of that cinema just being like, what the fuck was that? What the fuck was that? Like, there was something about the trailer for Spirited Away that just excited us in a way that I cannot even put into words. And so, like, it wasn't like, it was like 3 months later that Spirited Away was coming out. And we were like, oh, fuck, I can't wait to see it, can't wait to see it, can't wait to see it. And finally, it arrived, and I went to see it, and I sat there, and I think what you've got to understand is that I hadn't like watched a YouTube recommendation video about why Studio Ghibli was great. I had never heard of Hayao Miyazaki. I didn't know what Princess Mononoke was, Howl's Moving Castle, or Kiki's Delivery Service, or just Porco Rosso, anything. You know, I didn't know what Studio Ghibli was. So going from having no context about what Studio Ghibli was to watching Spirited Away on like, you know, a 30-foot high screen, I remember like sitting there in the cinema seat and feeling like parts of my identity were being rewritten by this fucking movie, because that's how powerful it was. That's like how just fucking crazy an impact that had on me. Like I literally came out of that cinema being like, Dapper Cat, I felt the same way about Space Jam. Well, that, you know, that's a whole other story. I came out of that cinema being like, I want to be an animator. I want to make shit like that. I want to make people feel that way. And then I did become an animator. I went to animation college. I worked in the animation industry for 6 years and worked on a bunch of stuff, and then fell into doing this. You can trace a direct line from that screening of Spirited Away to this fucking stream that you guys are watching right now. That is how big a deal that was. Spirited Away has no plot. It's fine, lovely vibey picture, but it has very little narrative cohesion. It doesn't need it. Like that, not everything needs a tight plot. A piece of art, a piece of narrative is not defined by how tight and succinct its plot is. That film is like fucking falling into a dream. That film is like a hallucination that lasts 2 hours, and it's all immaculately rendered by some of the most shockingly talented animators in the world. There's loads of shit I can go to for a decent plot. Nothing makes me feel like Spirited Away. And I think with that, like, you have to appreciate art on its own terms. You can't, like... Okay, I made this argument when I talked about Beau is Afraid. That is like saying the Mona Lisa is the worst automobile ever created. You try and drive the Mona Lisa, it's gonna go fucking badly. But if you stand back and just be like, it's a painting, it's cool. Now, obviously, there's limits to that. And I think specifically, whoever commented that, you're just not really vibing with Spirited Away, and that's fine. Like, you're not wrong. You're not wrong at all. It's just, I think, to level a criticism of Spirited Away that the plot is weak is like, no, that is not. So my favorite like concept to explain situations like this is, I was watching an interior design show about 20 years ago, and this just hit me so hard. Someone just goes, good design answers the questions it's asked. And so when you look at Spirited Away, I don't think the question there was, what is a good plot? I think they wanted to create a world that they would drag people in through this kind of story of Chihiro. And the plot really is just like a mechanism to pull you through this world and let you enjoy its sights, you know? That'd be my take on it anyway. And in that, it's like, you always have to come to a piece of media. You don't always have to like it, and you're never wrong for disliking a piece of media, but I think in terms of like criticizing it, you have to take into account what the intent of the piece of media is. XCOM is a terrible first-person shooter. Street Fighter 3 is an awful RPG. Undertale is a bad fighting game. You know what I mean? It's like that, and like, I'm using extreme examples, but I think that's what it is. Anyway, rant aside. So yeah, Spirited Away absolutely, completely changed my life. And I would say similarly for Ava and similar for Dragon Ball Z, they both dramatically affected like how I saw the world. And you know, because like growing up an awkward teenager, I know it'll shock you guys to hear this, but I was an awkward teenager, and watching Ava and just being like, oh my fucking god, these tiny skinny anime people are how I feel, you know, like it hit me that much. And it was the first time I ever felt like I felt seen, because, you know, I was like in like this all boys secondary school, and you know, I was like 15, and my classmates were talking about like going out and like having sex with girls and all this kind of stuff, and like I'd get there, but like that was not me at 15. I was still playing Pokemon at 15. I was still doing the. I was still, you know, grinding out my combos in Street Fighter Alpha 3. Now 16, things got a little messy about 16. That is a very different story. For those of you on my Patreon, you can read about that Euphoria review I did in the review hole. But yeah, it was watching Ava. I really so strongly just related to those characters. So yeah, like I remember watching FD Signifier's one of his last videos, and I think it's when he was no, it wasn't one of his last videos. It was the Drake video, the Kendrick Lamar Drake video. He has this paragraph about people who say that like they've never had their life changed by like an album or a piece of art, and he has this great line where he goes, if you have never had your life changed by a piece of art, I genuinely feel bad for you. And I completely feel that, you know, like I get that so hard. I get that so much. And that is all to say, I guess on some level I get why people still feel like kind of salty about the Bleach stuff, but I also think that it's been a while, and I think I think at some point you just can't take other people's opinions on media to heart. Like, you just have to kind of be secure in what you believe and like what you give a shit about. That's right, boys. Mondo. That would be my advice to anyone. Hey John, saw someone on Reddit say you have a Makima tattoo. Is that true? You don't strike me as that type of guy. I mean, look, this Makima tattoo thing. Okay, the Makima tattoo thing has become such a meme on these streams. Just this completely ill-founded weird rumor about my fan base that, like, look, this is what I bought at Amicon over the weekend as a joke. Okay. I thought I'd lean into the meme a little bit, and I got this bunny ears Makima. Obviously, I don't feel anything particularly about this character, and it's my first Makima figure. I mean, it's my only Makima figure. I don't know why I said first. That's crazy. You know. So there you go, chat. I'm leaning into the joke as well. Sure. I'm obsessed with Makima in a unhealthy way. Yeah, and I have a Makima tattoo, and I just bought my 8th Makima figure, and people buy me Makima zines for my birthday, and I draw Makima fan art in my spare time, and sometimes I rewatch the scenes of Chainsaw Man with Makima in it, and I have a Makima folder, which is just her panels from the manga. Yeah, sure. If people are so committed to believing that about me, then okay, I'll lean into the bit. I'll lean into the bit for you guys.